Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Come on down, start taking your seats. Obviously, feel free to observe the 2-meter separation, but feel free to move down closer to the screen. You don't all have to sit on the back seat of the bus, guys. How is everyone? Are you all well? Everyone well? Everyone, you better be if you turned up. Welcome along. I've just got to the point in life where I'm starting to struggle to read notes, so I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to make that hard decision and stop reading. It's going to set my monitor further away. Welcome along to CPS. 7:59, perfect timing. We've got a fun evening, a reasonably busy evening this evening, though it's just got a little bit shorter as Alistair's not here, so we can skim through his bits. But I think Ian knows most of it. You're all going to enjoy Ian's presence on stage for fairly large chunks of this evening. This is a great opportunity, whilst I'm gassing away and don't have anything really important to say, to check that your mobile phone is on silent. I know that mine isn't. There we go, that's better. Have we got any visitors tonight? No. So you all know where the exits are? Hands up. Okay, just for you. Exits either side of the stage, toilets in the far corner. Duck cover and hold. Sorry? Only this side. Oh, now that's good to know. Okay, that is excellent news. So, only run that way. Yeah, well, that's what I thought. Anyway, there's like 30 of us. We'll be okay. Just, if you see anyone lying on the floor, help them out. My notes even say scan the QR code, and we don't need to do that anymore. Excellent. Wash your hands, though. We've got a few things. I will get stuck in and get Ian up on stage for some announcements to start you off.
Right then. I already have to wear glasses to be able to see my bit of paper, but I'm going to sit in the same chair. First thing, like we said, next week is the memorial end of COVID starting step, even though we're thick of COVID, right in the thick of COVID, but the vaccine pass mandate thing changes. And that's the point at which we said we will reintroduce the 7 p.m. Session and the supper afterwards. Unfortunately, that didn't work out because the church, when we told them we weren't using the 7 p.m. session or the suppers through till beginning of May, have booked in something else, goes through till 9:30 to 10 next week. So we're delaying the kick-off of the 7 p.m. session and the suppers by another week. So we'll start that on the 13th. What I would like to mention and make quite clear sort of going forward, particularly because as I'm sure you're all aware, COVID's going crazy in Christchurch at the moment. We are going to be maintaining mask, almost mandates in here. The legislation just recommends it, and the church specifically asked us to have people with socially distanced and or with masks on. So we're going to require that for the rest of the things. So that's item number one. Item number two is something to give away. I got an email through the President's thing the other day from a chap in Riccarton somewhere who wants to give somebody in CPS a 80 to 210 lens. It's a Tamron 80 to 210 from the 1980s vintage. it looked to be in really good nick. It's some sort of fancy thing that you can buy adapters to, and he reckoned $20 for an adapter, and away you go. The reason he's giving it away is he's heading back to the UK to live next Tuesday. So if anybody wants his lens, I'll give you his telephone number, and you need to get onto it this week. So that's item number 2. Item number 3, Frank Green, ex-president, long-time member of CPS. I don't know the entire details, but I know that Frank's been a bit crook recently. But he's on the road to recovery, and Carol called me up the other day and said that Frank would love to come back to club, which is a great thing. The only problem is that Carol can't bring him because she's got other things, she's doing other things on Wednesday evenings, and she wondered if there is anybody who lives in or comes past Woolston on the way to CPS would be happy to pick up Frank on the way, 71 Rutherford Street. But I've got Carol's phone number here, so I'd really appreciate it if somebody thinks that they'd be able to come via Frank's place and pick him up, and we'll see if we can organise that. So that's a request. Come and see me afterwards, and we'll try and liaise that. The next one was Alistair's suggestion. Alistair came up with this great suggestion last week that he was going to kick off tonight, but obviously he hasn't for some reason. He's got waylaid, maybe he's got COVID, don't know. But his thought was, on nights such as tonight, we don't have any prints on the space, and we've got a really awesome space there for prints, and normally on print nights, everybody comes in here and we're all huddled around looking at the prints. So let's use that space on a regular basis for individual members to have like a mini exhibition. And I think that's a fantastic idea. I invited Alistair to kick it off, and he was going to be here this week doing it, but maybe he thought I meant next week. I'm not sure. We'll follow up on that. But if you are the sort of person who does a bit of print work, I've got a bit of a list that I made up of people I think would fit, but just come and say, hey, I'd love to do that. And we'll get everybody an opportunity throughout the year on nights like PIs where there's no prints there to just stick some prints up. Talk for a couple of minutes before we get going about what your prints are and why you've done it or whatever. Could be something like an honours set you put in, or maybe it's one you put in and missed out and never got to see the light of day. Whatever you want to do, that would be appropriate. The next one is the Spring Workshop Series. We talked about this extensively last year, but it's taken a while to get started. But we now have a survey on the front page of the website. So go to the website, look for the big green button, click the big green button, and you will be taken to a survey website where there's sort of 8 possibilities of the sorts of workshops that we could run. What we have put up there at the moment is a visual design workshop. I think we could twist John Suckling's arm and get him to run a weekend long one of those. A street photography option. I'm 99% sure I could get Tony Bridge to come up and run one of his street photography workshops. Post-processing, I'm thinking Helen might be able to do a good weekend thing on Photoshop or whatever. Creative, something like in-camera movement, lens babies, all sorts of things. So that sort of thing interests you, click that. A landscape, a portrait and lighting, and a nature. So we're not sure what we do, but just something along those, using those sort of genres, and we'll develop it from there. And the last possibility is a black and white introduction to black and white darkroom thing. And I'm sure we'll be able to twist Stuart's arm to run a little workshop of getting people to have their first go at some black and white developing. So if you've never had the opportunity to wiggle a tray and have a print appear in front of you, that might be a good thing to put down. So what I'd like you to do is to go to the website, as I said, click the big green button, and then choose your first 3 choices of the ones that you would like to do, and we'll use that as to inform which ones we go forward with. It'll also depend on what we're able to achieve as well in that. And the last one is the scavenger hunt. Can I have a bit of a show of hands from the people here who have got themselves together a scavenger hunt team? Who's going to participate in the scavenger hunt? Okay. There's not a huge amount. There you go. Find yourselves a team together. Okay, well, C graders can join in and be their own team if you want to. But if we're looking for more people who are prepared, who are interested in having a go, then Jane's been regularly calling for people to get hold of it. That kind of hasn't happened. I wanted to mod the rules just a little bit and to bring in another possibility, and that's I'm going to introduce the concept of an honorary C grader to open the possibility to somebody who might like to, for example, do it in the weekend but have their teenage daughter who's keen on photography but hasn't really had a chance, not actually a member of CPS, and really hard to drag your teenager along to a place like this, but getting them involved in the scavenger hunt might be an awesome place to kick it off, or your granddaughter or your grandson or your next door neighbour who sometimes talks to you about photography. Just get somebody who's not regularly at CPS in a team of 2 and you're done. So, and for the C graders, don't be put off by doing it just a couple of you together. It's not going to be earth-shatteringly difficult. It's going to be something that'll be fun. Tomorrow there will be a sort of a how to enter set of instructions. Basically, it's just a naming convention for a file, and we're going to get all the files for the entries emailed to John so he can set up the database to run it as the easiest way rather than using the entry thing. So make your pictures, make them in the same size as a CPS entry, and then put your entry for each category and then just put them on an email and send them to John. But the instructions for that will come out tomorrow. The other thing that we're doing is we're going to have voting via the website. Now, we've had a play with and we've figured out the website does a whole bunch of functions that we don't use very often, but one of them is a voting system. So we're going to have the People's Choice voting. So that will be able to be happened by all those people out there in the internet world who can sit at their computer at home and make votes. But if you come next week to look at the images that are presented as part of the scavenger hunt, make sure you bring your phone, and you won't be asked to turn it off because you're going to use your phone to vote for your favourite in each of the categories. So there'll be instructions on how to do that. And here's Alistair. Awesome. So Alistair can put his pictures up and we'll all have a look afterwards. So we'll get Alistair back up in a minute. Well, actually, do you want to talk about them now? Because I've just finished my notices and you were...
Just on that note, Ian, as I've discovered through personal experience, make sure that you remember your CPS login when you try and log in on your phone. We've got a bit of there'll be another instruction sheet on how to do that and how to do it on your phone. So go and have a bit of a play, make sure your phone works, have a look at it before you come, and it's really cool. We'll be able to have sort of interactive, you'll be able to vote and it gets thrown into a spreadsheet, and it's something we might use elsewhere if it works. I'm done. Carry on. Thanks, come back to Alistair. So we've got a few of you who are playing scavenger hunt and a few who want to play but aren't in a team yet. Don't be at all discouraged if you're not in a team. Just if you can find someone to play with, it's great to have someone to bounce ideas off. But it's just a great opportunity to direct your photography. And having judged a few other clubs where they give you sort of A grade, B grade, C grade results, I've got to say almost exclusively, or almost all the time, the C grade images that I see are so much more interesting than the A grade and the B grade images because they haven't been indoctrinated into the same style of photography as everyone else in the club. So go for it. Just get out there and have fun and take photos. I'm just going to touch briefly on on field trips. We've got the Easter field trip. I notice Mike isn't here tonight, unfortunately. I'm sure that'll be a lot of fun. I believe it's full. Can anyone confirm that, the Easter trip? But then we also have the Boyle River Fungi trip coming up 13th and to 15th of May. If you're interested in going along to that, come see Diana at some point. Hi Diana, lovely to see you. and that'll be a lot of fun. And it's not that big a trip from Christchurch either, which is excellent. Tonight is the open projected image landscape close. So competition, whatever it is, number 3, 4? 3 closes tonight. Two entries. Landscapes, yep. Tonight we've got the results of PI2, which is great. But before we do that, I'm going to ask John Casey to come up and present MDC1, I think we're going to get to see tonight. MDC3 closes tomorrow. And the topic is... I was hoping we were going to get someone other than me or you say the answer, but no. So you've got one night, so I might just get my entry in right now. Where are you all? Okay, there we go, done. And I can submit that on my phone. John.
This year, 2022 MDC1 Rhythm. Some people had seen it, some people hadn't. So last week we showed the Time is Right slideshow, which should technically have been shown tonight. So tonight we'll show Rhythm, which we showed somewhere earlier in the year, but I'm not quite sure. I can't quite remember when. But I feel I saw it here. So if we go through and show Rhythm, and then I'll present the chocolate fish to the winners of the 2 MDCs. And just tomorrow night, midnight, 11:59, seated closes. There's not many entries in there at the moment, so you've got a good chance of winning if you get an entry in between now and midnight tomorrow. I have a little bit more light, please, so I can just... So the winner of that was Nicola Jackson. Is Nicola here tonight? Kay Miller. Is Kay here tonight? Alan Moore. And from last week, Raymond Wright. Raymond's due a chocolate fish. There we are, Raymond. And we'll just get you to draw the lucky topic for next month, next month. A number between 1 and 7, please. 4, and then number between 1 and 30. 27. Music Harmony. Good luck, everybody. Music Harmony, due on the 30th of April. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Just before I get Alistair up to talk about his prints that he's brought along, who entered the National Exhibition this year? And who got some results this year? Ooh, would you like to share? Newell? Congratulations. Ron? Fantastic. Congratulations. Anne, welcome. 4 accepted in open. 2 accepted in open. Congratulations. Round of applause, everyone, for these guys. It's unfortunate that there was no print in the category, and there won't be in public exhibition this year, but it's great to see everyone entering. Alistair, would you like to come up and talk about the prints plan?
First of all, my apologies for being late. I had a bit of a twilight moment. I mean, it was only 7 o'clock half an hour ago. Well, so I thought. Anyway, the plan was I was going to have a mass display of all my prints up there, which I'll still intend to do. I'll put half of them up, half the rest out in the car. I was planning on setting them up, but never mind. Anyway, it starts off, guess what? I love prints. You can hang them on the wall, you can exhibit them, you can compete with them. They don't get lost in a computer, on a file. They serve good memories. They personalise your home when you hang them on your wall. It gives you a positive feeling of your past experiences in life, your travels and your family, and etc., etc. Not expensive to produce. Mats I compete with are $8 to print at Photo and Video, and that's a 8 by 12, so it's a fairly decent sized print. And I've got a guy, John Smith, who does all my matting, and he charges around about 20, 25, depending on the size, obviously. So he's very reasonable, and he's expert in his profession. He made this for me. I get him to do my matting, and I turned up to pick up my next competition print one day, and he said, "Oh, look what I've done for you, Al. I've put it in a frame and glass. You'll have to make another print." I said, "Oh." He said, "No, just kidding." He undid 3 little screws on the back, and that pops off. You can then slide the print out and put another print in. So if you have all your prints made to the same size matting, then, well, I can have a different print every week of the year, and you can hang them on your wall, or I've made a wee easel, which are pretty cheap at the warehouse or wherever. I made this one, but like I say, you can buy cheaper ones, and like I say, you just put that back and 3 little screws through a bit of plywood on the back, and voila. Now I'm getting around to my main topic of my talk, and that's we make very little use of this wall over here. It's a waste of space. It's only used in print competitions and likes of natural history and maybe a few times a year. My thoughts are, I have been having them for a wee while, is that printmakers can exhibit their prints every week. Different printmaker every week. Have we exhibition? So I mean, I'm quite happy to run it, and if you print guys, print people, if you come to me, and then I can program you in for a specific week through the year. Something else we could do is on the night, 5 minutes of questions. It's not long. The audience questions the person who made the prints. How you made them, where you made them, how expensive they were, what inspired you. And it's much in the same vein as what Ian's trying to promote with his with set projects. You want to get your prints out there. You want to see them, be it these fancy sets that we've seen made, or just a stock standard print, matted print. And just to add a wee bit of bait there, we could have a wee prize at the end of the year for a lucky draw for one of the exhibitors. And if anybody's interested in what I've done here, then come and see me, and I can give you all John Smith's details after tonight's show. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. Ooh, blimey. Okay, I did mention this was quite a busy evening. I love seeing the prints, and it's great to be able to actually wander along the wall in your own time and look at the images. So I think this is a great idea. I think it'll be a really nice thing to see every few weeks when we don't have a print competition results. So great suggestion. I think maybe we should just move on to the main event. What do we reckon? Yeah, okay. Tonight, John Hawkins is going to come up and introduce your judge for the evening for Open PI 2.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to do tonight's Open Projected Image number 2 for the year. The entries for this competition was 52. We had 19 accepted, 7 high, 5 honours, and obviously 1 best in show. So that makes up to 62% were accepted. Tonight's judge has been a little elusive. He really needs no introduction, and in fact, when I asked him if he could provide me with a bit of a bio, he referred me to a song by Simply Red. Can anybody think what the song might be? If You Don't Know Me By Now. Ian Walls. He's challenged us over the years, all members I'm sure, on the annual challenge. That's been going since I've ever been at CPS, and he's obviously our current president. So I'll actually hand it over to Ian to do the introduction of himself.
Thank you. Right, I did have some statistics I sent to John, but I can't remember what they were, so I'll just make it up. relating to judging, basically, is what I was talking about. I was on one of the first of the new PSNZ accredited judging programs there. I think it started around 2013, and they had a judging weekend, which they've been going regularly, and I challenge anybody to go to one and get the opportunity. They're really cool. So I did the first one, and then I joined the accredited judge training program shortly after that, and got accredited, I don't know, a year later, 18 months it might have been, and I've been judging at PSNZ for PSNZ judging since then. I got appointed 6 years ago to the Judge Accreditation Panel, which is the panel of people who oversee the judge training, and I've been doing that as well for the last half a dozen years. So I really enjoy judging. What I enjoy about it is it's a fantastic opportunity to have a look at other people's work and to look at other clubs and to just see stuff that I haven't done myself and looking at a completely different perspective. I've done some things and talked some things about how to look at pictures, and just want to explain a little bit about how I look at pictures. The first kind of thing I look at is what can I pick up and what can I learn from sort of a technical or a design point of view, and that's just like a sort of the mechanics behind it. When I find something that's a bit different, I try to figure out how the person's done it, or what can I learn from it, or if I find a design thing that I think works, what can I learn from that? And when it comes to judging, you actually have to sort of do that, but go backwards a little bit as well, and make suggestions back to the people as to what they could perhaps do a little bit differently in the future. I then like to think about successful images as, for me, there's kind of three components to a successful image, and I imagine it's kind of like filling up a bucket of a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of the other, and you just need to get the bucket full. So I like to think that there's three things within an image, and that's the form, the feeling, and the content. So form, what I'm thinking about here is the design stuff and basically how cool it looks. So you can have something which has got so much, it looks so fantastic that it's got enough form things that fills the bucket all by itself and the others matter less. Or you might have something which has got about feeling, it's got lots and lots of emotion, it tells you something, it brings something across which is all emotive, and there's so much as that, then the design things don't matter quite so much. So you can be sort of weaker on the form, stronger on the feeling, but you've still got enough to fill the bucket up to make a successful image. And content for me is story. So the story behind the image can be all-encompassing, and the rest of it doesn't matter. The image I think of all the time when I think about that is the Vietnam girl, the Nick Ute picture, which I suspect we all remember of the Napalm girl. If you look at the picture itself, it's not in brilliant focus. There's a few other bits and pieces, so the subject is right smack in the middle. There's a whole bunch of things that people might critique it for, but the story is so powerful that we all know the picture. So those are the sort kind of things I think of. When I come to judging images, I still think in those three categories. So images put together from that respect. Okay, so that's my little ramble finished. I shall start talking about tonight's pictures. Just forward key. All right, ready to go. Coming up for air. The water certainly looks cold and inviting and really chilly there. But the little boy, or I think it's a boy, it's hard to tell, is sort of jumping up out of the water, and the shutter speed is just a little bit slow to capture the action perfectly. And the water in front of him behind the subject is sharp, but the moving subject himself is moving and a bit blurry. So, as I was saying before, the story kind of thing has not come across all that well, because here's this main subject right bang and smack in the middle, but not quite as sharp as well. For me, the vignetting is also a little bit strong. So that one was not accepted. Next. Fractured by the earthquake. The rock slide, I think, has drawn your attention. So right in the middle of the cliff at the top, this bit up here is the bit that I'm deducing by your title is what's drawn your attention. In the design, there's nothing helping me pull up towards there. There's no visual cues, leading lines or anything like that to draw my eye, and it's only a relatively small part of the frame. There's also a few technical issues. The whole thing's a little blurrier than I would like, and I'm wondering whether that's an aggressive crop from a smaller frame. To make this more successful, I think finding yourself in a position where there's some rocks that create a leading line to pull the eye up to the big fracture, which is dramatic and is worth photographing, but in this form it was not accepted. Yellow bloom. I love the explosion of yellow. And the whole petal structure, the sort of a fan-like thing, there's a whole bunch of lines that are leading back towards the middle, but it's all drawing me back to this petal here. For me, from a design point of view, that's the key element, because all the lines draw me back into that one petal, and that's not in focus. So this might be an opportunity for focus stacking or something like that. There's also a couple of brown spots on some of the images, and you quite within your rights to clone those out in this sort of competition. But for me, the key thing which is visually drawn to needs to be pin sharp, and again, not accepted. Really high contrast and makes this feel very dramatic, and the red and gold colour pairing also works in emphasising the drama. The square crop emphasises the strong kind of vertical lines. It's almost like a cross on the side of the petals this way and then that way, and the stamens in the middle are strong and a middle point. So that all kind of works. I'm just put off by this bit here, which I'm drawn right to, and for me that's a key, and you've chosen one that's got a broken piece in it. So you've got a couple of choices there. You either choose yourself another flower or clone that out. You're totally entitled to get in there and Photoshop and get rid of that. But at the moment, that's the key element right in the middle of the thing, and it's drawn my attention, and I found that quite distracting. So no acceptance. Winter flood. There are two subjects here. Is the image about the water or about the tree? And you've divided the frame into two equal parts. Your title suggests that you really are more interested in telling the story about the flood and the water. For me, I think if you crop down from the top and make this an almost square crop to just above the telephone pole, the whole subject becomes more about the foreground. It's more about the story about what you're trying to say, and the tree becomes a secondary element that helps. You don't need to see the whole things. The telephone poles also are a bit problematic in that they stand out from anything else. Once again, I'd be in there with a cloning tool and getting rid of them on top of that crop. Not accepted. Becky. The model's excellent, and I really love the Cleopatra style makeup and the styling here, and there really is a story to tell in this image. The strong lighting on her face works really well. I like her pose, I like what she's looking at, and I liked the light on her arms. However, for me, the story is lost in the setting. I don't think nicely trimmed green lawns were a thing in ancient Egypt, and that doesn't kind of flow through with what you're looking for. The other thing is that the really bright grass in the background is problematic and quite distracting. So I think you're well on the way to something fantastic here, but I just felt that the setting, when you're doing a portrait like this, which is a storytelling kind of portrait, the whole image needs to tell the story, not just the model and the makeup. Misty morning. This was a score 2. Well done getting out of bed on a cold and dreary looking morning. I enjoyed that you have selected the foreground grass with the frost as your main subject, and the story is about the relationship between the foreground and the frost and the trees in the background. The problem for me here is the way you've arranged the subject. We've got this area of, over this side, all these grasses here really don't help. This one here is perfect. These are a distraction. I think if you'd taken a pace to the left and you made that big symmetrical looking grass the key and the hero and the element in the foreground, and let that misty, distant, cold background add to that, that would have just taken the whole thing to another level. As it is with the arrangement here, it's all a bit muddled in the foreground. Your foreground is important, but your foreground in this presentation is quite muddled. So a great concept, but strive to make more of the main subject. Childhood memories, another score of 2. I enjoy the kind of keyhole viewpoint, which adds a bit of interest. Looks to me like an infrared image. May not be, but it may just be the way the exposure is set up on a black and white, but it's an infrared style image. The large glowing tree in the middle is a strong point. The frame doesn't appear to be level. The boy looks like he's riding downhill, and the church is tilted over to the back, which I found put me off a little bit. But the main problem was the big dark structure on the left-hand side, which really didn't add too much to it. It just got in the way rather than adding to things. I think a couple of steps to the right, to the point where you made that step a smaller part of things, could have worked much better. Allow the boy to come into the frame himself, or if you've just removed that structure, I think it would have worked extremely well. But a big chunk of the frame is that step and dark building. Another score 2, Curio Bay winds. When this image first comes onto the screen, as the viewer, I immediately saw the big, large, dramatic wave in the background. The small, bubbly wave in front is the one that's in focus, and that's the problem. The seagull on the beach right in front of the big wave over at the moment is also a bit of a distraction, and I would clone him out as a first step. But what's happened here, I believe, is that your autofocus has grabbed onto the nearest thing to it. That's the way autofocus works. First of all, if there's multiple subjects in a scene, it'll grab the nearest thing if it's given an opportunity to focus on everything. In this case, to make your story about the waves and the wind, you really need to be focused on the wave at the back. So you need to control where the focus point is going and not let your camera do it for you. Anticipation, Grace at the beach, again score 2. Cute little girl and her family will absolutely love this image. Good focus, a simple background and good positioning in the frame, but it just lacks something to take it a step up into to a competition level. It's a great record of this moment. It's a great thing about the wee girl, but there's not much story in here other than cute wee girl. Nothing wrong with the picture, but it just says cute wee girl, and I think you need to go a step further to be successful in competitions. Feet first, again score 2. I get from your title that the feet are the big thing. Whenever you get a face in there, the face is going to draw the eye though. So my eye was initially drawn past the feet towards the guy's face. I think the shutter speed just needs to be that little bit faster. The water is still moving, and I don't mind the sense of flow and the movement, but the nothing is sharp on the guy. He's just gone too fast for the whole thing. I'm not sure what you're focused on. I'm not sure what the focal point is, because there's nothing in there that appears to be focused on. So shutter speed just needs to be cranked up is basically what it's looking for, and then try and find a way to get the camera to focus on the face, because that will always that'll be always the place that the viewer goes to look. Sunflower, again scored 2. Very dramatic and a different view of the sunflower. The high contrast black and white works well, and it just takes it across to somewhere different. But the image is really, it looks better on the screen than it did on my computer, and it does on here as well. It's a little bit flatter, and it just needed something to punch and to really bring those something white out. Effectively, I said it was lacking in a white point, and I really would like the eye drawn more strongly towards the leaves in the front. And again, compared to the image that I'm looking at on the computer here, the one on the screen is better. I said reshoot this with a wider depth of field to make sure the petals, all of the petals are in focus, and lighten the petals and make them the bright point that jumps out of you, and get rid of that highlight by toning it down on the little leaf branch that's coming in from the top side as well. But it's kind of a nearly, and a bit of tweaking in Photoshop I think would take it a step higher. Playing. Technically very well executed with a great point of focus on the buck's head. However, the whole thing just for me is really static. Here we got a couple of antelope, fighting, and there's just no tension in the image at all. I get no sense that there was a fight here, and the animals in the background, you can only partly see them, but they're eating. They're more interested in eating the grass than they are in what's going on here. So maybe there's not a drama. I wonder whether a tighter crop from this image and a slight tilt to create the impression that one head is dominating the other one, so there's one down on the other, would add a little bit of tension, which is what I feel is the story should have some tension in it, and there really wasn't much here, primarily because of this static central positioning and the crop. Run down at Orari. The scene is certainly run down, and your treatment pushed the viewpoint away from the literal, which I really enjoyed. I'm not going to talk about focus and all that sort of stuff here, because it's not about that. It's all about grain and run-downness and all that sort of stuff. When I looked at that, though, I went, where do you want me to look? What is the story? Is the story about the fact that there's somebody living in that caravan? Or maybe there is. They've got a TV aerial there, and they look like they've got some water connected it. Or is it the fact that there's a tree growing up through the barn? Or is it the barn is about to fall down? Just kind of what is it that you really liked about this thing? What is the story that you wanted to tell? And, to make that story, if the story is about just decay, then get in a little bit closer on the decaying element and make that the main thing within your picture. Make that the key to what you're saying, not the overview picture that you've presented here. One more step. I enjoyed the lines of the handrail coming up either side, and the steps that take us up all the way, and suddenly you find a person at the top of the step with their foot sort of suspended in the abyss. However, the brightest part, the brightest area for me is right at the top of the frame, and my eye gets pulled up to the man, and then I quickly go past him to see what else is happening and disappear off the top of the frame. I think you need to stop me doing that, and to do that, I would suggest a crop about here. So we don't need any of that sky. We need to just stop across here, and then we get a visual stop at the top of the frame, and then there's a square that's pretty much enclosed where we have to look. So we're going to go up the steps, find the subject, and that's where we're going to stop. So once again, when you look at an image like this, or look at any image, remember that the brightest element in the frame is going to draw the viewer's eye to that. and think what is going to happen from the bright areas. White. The composition here draws my eye nicely to the centre of the flower, which is the sharpest point. And again, there's a difference to the picture on the screen than it is here. Whenever we get illuminations like that, it pushes it brighter. The whole thing felt a bit dull. It's brighter and whiter on the screen than it is on the computer, and it was on my monitor, which was calibrated, so it was just coming across a little bit dull. My suggestion was to push the whites up a bit higher, and then to put a subtle vignette to draw the eye back into the middle and make it sort of stand out again, which it does more on the projected image than it does on the computer. So that's unfortunate. Turquoise in the gorge. A bold explosion of colour works well. The composition feels very slightly tilted to the left, and my eye is drawn down to the water and then all the way up through to the gorge, but I keep getting pulled up to that little piece of sky in the top, which doesn't add anything to the whole story. I think you could perhaps consider bringing a crop down to that and letting the story stop at that point and not allowing the eye to pull through. Same sort of deal as I was talking about before about bright areas pulling the eye, and that's exactly what's happened here. Your subject is the river and the rocks and the trees and that sort of relationship, and then we've got this big triangle of white at the top, which is distracting. Amongst the blossoms, the soft ethereal feel of the blossom works really well here. The mother and baby are the main subject, but suddenly I find the father hiding in the background there, and he kind of puts me off a little bit. I'm also then, once I've noticed him, I'm also put off by the really strong vertical form of that tree. There's lots of potential here, but it didn't quite deliver. I think it would be better if you could hide the father completely. Again, with a bit of cloning, he could disappear and you wouldn't even know, and you could then just come in with a crop from the left to remove that tree, and that sort of soft, floaty feeling and mother and baby walking in the blossoms is a much more succinct story than a number of people and you know, the lost father or the strong tree trunk or whatever other stories I've created. Take away those distracting, and this sort of steps it up, like I said, nearly, but it didn't quite get there. Waitarua Homestead decline. Your exposure settings have created a dark and gloomy feel, which is what you're looking for, so that's fine. While the background gives context to the building, it also takes away from your story. If you look at how much house is in the frame, it's less than a quarter of the frame, yet it's the kind of main element. It doesn't have to be the only thing there, but I think a closer study would work better. If you brought the crop in, made it almost a square crop or just much tighter so that there was less of the clouds above, so perhaps there's just the relationship between the bush and the lake and the stones and the house was there, with the house as the key element. Here, there's so much else for me to look at in the frame that I quickly glance at the house and then I'm off looking at the rest of the stuff. Judges in discussion. The vibrant colours here and the nice exposure allows us to see these gents really well. I can see into them and I can see a couple of blokes talking. Just don't get any sense that they're judges. Maybe they are, you're telling me they are, so they are, but I don't really feel any relationship between them and the flowers other than that they're standing behind them. Their positioning within the frame, right bang smack in the middle, is very static, and that just makes me look at it and stop, and I don't really find anything to sort of imply that they're judges. If they were off to one side on the third, or you'd cropped in from the right to put them on a sort of a PowerPoint at a third, and you'd chosen another moment where they're looking over and pointing at the flower or developing the story a little bit, I think this would be more successful. Castle Hill, this is the first of the acceptances. There's a strong feeling, a sense of strength in this image, and the texture in the rock and the very dark background. The arrangement of the rock so that there's a slight tilt, that creates a sort of an element of tension which works really well. I kind of get the feeling that something might fall over it, but it's not going to. I think you could do well to tidy the background up a little with that top left corner where there's a little splash of light. Just darken that down so that it all disappears, and then just above the line there's another little white sort of a spot. Just tidy those little elements up and darken them down again, and it will take it to a next level. But there was a sort of a graphic nature of that appealed to me. Marie, another acceptance. I enjoyed the edgy nature of this portrait. Her tattoos, the red hair, the undone strap and the reinforcing aisle all work together to create an edgy feel, which is where I think you were going with that. I would love to see a little bit more light punched into her face to really get her face to lift up. If you could emphasise her face and her red hair, I think this would lift this even further, but the edgy nature of it certainly came across. Kotari. Beautiful capture of this little Kotari with a superb out of focus background and the branch line coming from forward and leading me in. Perhaps I've seen too many saturated images of these little birds, but I left with the feeling that the saturation slider could have done with a wee bump to the right, and it would have made it feel sort of punchier. Interesting for people who've heard me judge before, but I really like the white frame in this. It works in this case. It makes the whole thing feel pictorial with that little white frame with the black edge around it. I would love to see the image reconstructed with the bird just offset a little bit to the left so that it took it right out of that bang smack in the middle and very static feel. You could still have it all about that and no background with it just slightly off to the left, and I think there would be another added tension. There might be a sort of a tense feeling that the bird's about to take off or something. But well done and an acceptance. Autumn bug. Great capture of the leaf on the branch and the bug with a wonderful out of focus background. The positioning on the leaf on that 1/3 sort of PowerPoint draws my eye immediately to it, but the bright white wings of the bug a little bit further down the branch grabs my eye from the subject which I first go to, done by sort of the dynamics and the arrangement, and then the white bit is what grabs my eye and pulls it away as it's pulled down to there. I wondered if the colours slightly, and once again they're a bit warmer in the projection than they are on the computer, would make the scene feel more welcoming. And I think you could handle a bit of increased warmth in an autumn scene, but a successful image that I enjoyed. Another acceptance, New Brighton sunset. The simple composition with a strong vertical form and the dramatic light here works really well. The scene feels more threatening than it perhaps needs to, and I wonder if lifting the shadows a little would make that back off. Again, the shadows are lifted slightly in the projected presentation. The figures being very central, once again, have made for a very static arrangement, and I wondered if you've got a shot of them about 3 paces before this to the left, it might have just created a slightly more tension in the composition than something bang smack in the middle. Great colours, and I really enjoyed the drama in the sky. It must have been super spectacular to see it. Score 3, The Gamekeeper. I enjoyed the depth and the intrigue in this image. The fog adds mystery, and the light background draws my eyes through the scenes. The strong verticals here make the whole forest scene feel a bit threatening. The central positioning of the figure once again creates a slightly static viewpoint, and I just wondered if a slightly wider view, that you can't really see it on here, but this is a portrait image. If it had been a landscaped orientation and you'd gone a bit further to the left so that the tree all the way to the left had been complete, it just might lift things up a little bit, but as it's presented, a really successful image, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the depth and the of what was presented here predominantly. Doing the mahi. Good study of the birds coming out of the copper. They don't look that appetising to me, to be honest, but anyway. Excellent focus and exposure on the man's face. Once again, some of it's slightly brighter than the presentation that's come across the things. I've suggested just lifting the shadows and darkening the highlights in the sky. The sky is quite bright, so I definitely want to darken the highlights in the sky now back down a little bit, although the shadows have lifted and that's worked. But it's all about the look on the guy's face and the appetising looking food. Rayograph interpretation. The most interesting of Man Ray's photograms tell a much greater story than the collections of objects that he's arranged on the photo paper. So this is something which has been, a rayograph is a photogram which is kind of a Man Ray thing, and I'm assuming that this is some sort of a task that you've had or challenge you've had to yourself to do something similar. And I think you've done this quite successfully. Like the objects, the interpretation of the objects have done something differently. You've done this well, and this makes me think of my mother's dressing table when I was a kid. The objects like the beads and the comb and the stuff are all that, do all that. The fuzziness of the three-dimensional objects, so the comb is crystal clear because that's nice and flat and it's sitting hard down again, but the hair comb thing, whatever you call those, and the beads that have got a little bit of light going around them indicate to me that there's a little bit of three-dimensionality to those things, so that the light is wrapped around them. So it made me look and stare and think about it, and so I think well done for trying something different, and Man Ray would be proud of you. Ben O'Hare Range from Lake Ruritaniwha. Good black and white interpretation, and the postbox or pano presentation works well. The leading lines on both sides draw me towards the line of boys, and then from the midground, there's a big sort of area of midground which is not too much in it, and the mountains are, they're not dark, but they don't stand out. I'd love to see this. You can see in the little patches of cloud that there are bright spots throughout there. So that means for me if the sky's moving, you're going to get passages of light passing. If you had waited until a little blast of light had come through one of those holes and shone on that mountain range in the background, that would have really drawn me rapidly through that and taken this up another notch. So that, I think, the same thing, portrait lighting, people control the light. When you're in the landscape, you have to look for it and anticipate the light and wait for it to happen and find out what your subject is, and then try to encourage the gods to open up the skies and shine a light on what you want it to happen. So I think the scene is set here, but the light didn't quite make it blast to its highest potential. Tight racing, score of 3. Great capture of what is indeed tight racing. You've got the 3 riders in focus, and the shutter speed is fast enough to capture the details on the machines, but to leave a little bit of movement in the wheels. However, I think those dark visors should be banned from all motorcycle photographs, you just can't see the guy. If we could see the lead rider's face, which you can a little bit here when it's pushed up, so maybe there's some potential. Maybe that's something you could think about as brightening that separately. That would really jump things up, and you can see the guy third back, and a relationship between the two of them would really step things up. So if we're not going to be able to ban the dark visors, so we're just going to need to try and find some light that's going to help to do that. Begonia. I really enjoyed the soft form of the image. It tells the story of the feel of the begonia rather than what it kind of literally looks like. The simple colour form of pink, there's a little bit of green in there and white. When I looked at this in the sort of perfect thing, I'd like to see either of two things. I'd like to see the whole thing given a bit more space and it step back a little bit, so with that soft fuzz, pinky fuzzy area on the left-hand side, if that encompassed the whole thing, I think that would jump it up a little bit. Or go the other way and go in a bit tighter, so there's everything there. So what's happened here is the thing's kind of sitting in the middle to the right of the frame, and we've got this space on the left-hand side which contributes something, but I think would work better if it was all the way around. So I'd be looking to expand the frame and put some of that cool pink blur all the way around, or take it out completely if you can't make it wrap around the whole thing. But really enjoyed the image, and it was a good solid acceptance. Only hanging on by one leg. He is really hanging on, and I would guess that the crab has a fighting chance of getting away here. Great fast shutter speed, which has captured the water drops. The bird is pin sharp and has a really simple background. Once again, it's quite a lot darker here, and it's punched through quite well on the projected image. I would just, the exposure level is quite good there, and I think you could actually afford to have a very slight vignette, and that would just draw the eye in a little bit tighter to the actual subject. But it's a great moment, and I'd love to know whether the crab won or the bird won. Humpbridge Summit view. It does look like a great view and well worth the effort to climb up there. While this image form with somebody standing on a jetty or a pathway or something is something that we've seen often, it totally works. And in this case, with the subject facing away and waving, initially draws my eye, so I'm drawn along the pathway and see the subject. Because they're looking away, I then look right past them and take up the view of the rest of the, to understand what they view. I found the second hill to the right competes a little bit as an element in the frame. I wondered if you could tighten the crop up a little, bring the crop on the right-hand side into the sort of top of that hill, and then match it on the left enough to make it you still need the person on the walkway in the middle. And I think that would then hold your attention on that and the view past a little bit better. Snake charmer. A good example of the great colours and the patterns that these LED sticks can produce. The performer's face sits nicely within the light pattern, but the lighting has produced some very harsh highlights which have perhaps been emphasised in post-process sharpening, so that the whole thing just gets a bit crunchier than is entirely pleasing. But it's all about the patterns, secondary the person, and that patterns work well, and it's a good acceptance. Looking out, strong vertical forms and the composition suit the portrait orientation. There's excellent lighting on the boy's face, and the dark background and strong contrasts add to the mystery and really simplifies the image. Enjoyed that. There were lots of waves in this competition for some reason, but this one was really successful. Panoramic form works well, and the wave is positioned expertly within the frame. The focus is bang on, and the shutter speed is perfect to give the waveform, make the waveform nice and sharp, and the spray to get some movement as it moved away. I enjoyed the introduction of a little bit of slight warm colours in the highlights, which added a little bit of interest, just in the sky above, and a little bit in the wave as well. Symmetrical escalator acceptance. Very strong graphical image. The symmetry is handled really well, and the passerby draws my vision down the escalator. If the woman wasn't there, the whole thing is a purely graphical exercise, and she adds a strong extra dimension. Unfortunately, the area where she is really bright and overexposed a little bit, and consequently we can't see the details in her face. It's also those bright lights underneath the escalator have sort of pushed the whole thing a little bit. I'm sure there's enough detail in your frame there, and I think a little bit of judicious dodge and burn type things would be able to calm those down and even things out, so the main subject that I'm drawn to is exposed well. Magic Stream. Beautiful, vibrant colours of the lupins, and the treatment treads the line between emphasising the colour and overdoing it a little bit. It's nice and vibrant and bright without just going too far. It's been nicely judged. The image for me doesn't really feel like it's about a stream. I don't even really notice it until I read the title again and went back looking for it. And I did find that area of light in the trees a little bit distracting. I'm drawn to that and not concentrating on the lupins. I also found the chain chicken mesh kind of fence also didn't kind of fit. Once again, I wondered if you consider a couple of paces to the right or a slightly different positioning, just to let the lupins hide that, and it might lift it up a little bit. The balance of the colour you've got bang on. It's just this couple of elements pulled me away from the story. Lilac Lass. Lovely soft wraparound lighting that appears to come from window light, camera right. Great simple colours with her eyeshadow matching the flowers. Simple background and a great smile. Just a loose hair on the little bit, for me, lets it down a little bit on that sort of camera left side. All the strands of hair behind her ears are not there on the other side. I'd either like to see a whole of her hair sort of a little bit scruffy or that tidied up, so something you could fix at the time or clone out, and either of those things would help just to move it up a step. It's inconsistent with the great setup which is there for the rest of it, so, but good solid portrait. More waves. There have been a number of these panoramic images in this competition, and once again this one works well. The energy of the waves flows from left to right, but the wind is pushing it back the other way. Looks like you've used a very fast shutter speed, and that's been able to capture the spray quite still. For me though, it's a little darker than it kind of needs to be. Sing Like No One's Listening. The image is perfectly titled, and the combination of reading that title and looking at these couple of clowns made me smile. And that means the image is successful. If it's made me smile, it's worked already. It's always difficult to arrange two subjects, and in this case, in a perfect world, you'd have a third monkey who's conducting or doing something completely different, and the two were singing to him or something along those lines. Whenever you have two, that's difficult. But in this case, you get away with it pretty well because the two of them are so similar that they've almost become one subject. So I did find the bright splash of white in the foreground at the middle a little bit distracting, and I think you could do with toning that down to stop my eye being pulled away. Colour of cold. This is a high acceptance. I enjoyed the drama on the deep blue, and yes, it did feel cold. For me here, the post-processing is not saying this is what it's looked like, it's saying this is what it felt like, and I enjoyed that. If this was just cold colours, it might be too much, but what makes it work is that little sliver of the grasses, which is a little element of warmth, and the warmth emphasises the cold even more. It creates a counterbalance. The fairly aggressive processing has created a little bit of noise in the clouds right at the top, which could be usefully removed to take it a notch further, but I really enjoyed it anyway. Taking flight, again a high acceptance. A very high contrast makes this graphical interpretation of the scene of the geese taking flight. The water splashes add some action and some interest, and I really enjoyed the points where the wings cross the horizon. So we've got like one with one cring, one with two wings, and the third one has just got one touching it. They're all a little bit different, and those little high action points where things cross over are what draws your attention. The other thing that was interesting were the two, they're kind of shadows, but the heads of the two birds on the left look kind of identical, and there's a repetition form that sort of ties them together. Great chop, really enjoyed this. Serenity. Again, high acceptance. Serenity is the state of being calm and peaceful, and I think you've captured that sense here really well. I enjoyed the oblique line of shadow at the top, although I'm not sure whether it's a shadow or a change in something or some sort of line. It did I looked at it and went, is that a shadow or that somebody's done that afterwards? I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. I liked the form within the background. There's no doubt that you want me to look at the flower because that's really sharp and that's the brightest part of the whole thing, and I'm drawn to that, and the texture in the background really supported it. Everything else in the construct supported me looking at that flower and created that sense of being calm and peaceful. Well done. Spoonbill sunset. This image of a spoonbill is probably not going to take out the Natural History Championship, as there's kind of slight movement in the wings and details of the feathers are hard to see in the darkness. But this is not a natural history competition, and I think this is a wonderful story of the sunset. The fighting warmth of the sky is counterbalanced against the purple light and the purple light on the bird, and we know that bird is white and yet he's coming across as purple. That's where the story is. There's some small droplets of water falling away from his feet, which add an interesting detail. But there's a couple of slight sharpening artifacts around the bird's head and feet, so you could be a little bit careful with to take it another step further. But enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the feeling that it created. The Von mistake. This image creates an unusual feel from a point of view of the night sky. Typically, when we see night images, star scenes, people are doing all they can to get rid of the long shutter speed star trails, but you've embraced it and gone with it. The overall softness and the strength of the blue creates a pleasing effect. The static and positioning of this tree in this case works because it's a counterbalance with the movement of the star trails and the light from the passing car. So slightly different, slightly unusual, really enjoyed it. First of the honours, seat C01. The vibrant red to me speaks of an opulent space and a well-loved theatre. The wonderfully arranged curves created a sense of elegance. I looked at it and went, I wonder what it would look like if there was a person sitting in the chair, but then I went, nah, this is completely not necessary, and it would just draw my eye away from the elegance of the seating. C01, which you've emphasised and showed there, is all that's needed to control the flow of focus and hold my attention. Well done. Brunner Bridge twist and zoom. The twist and zoom technique is something used often, but rarely as successfully as this image. In conjunction with the structure of the bridge, it creates a tunnel that draws my eye right into the middle of the space at the end. It's just lines of dark and then green and gold colours. It's kind of, there's dark, there's green, there's gold, and there's just a hint of blue, and each of these things spiral around, and it kind of feels like a time warp thing, and I'm drawn right through to the end, and even though there's nothing but a square of brighter light at the end, I'm not put off by that because it's almost a relief to get there. Thoroughly enjoyed this and well-deserved honours. Floral study. This image represents a really interesting exercise in design. The implied line created by the two patterns is almost but not quite on the diagonal. That slight tension creates an energy in the composition. The smaller pattern initially appears to be a repeat of the larger one, but it's not. When you look a little bit closer, it's actually reversed. And again, that adds a sort of a slight tension to the whole thing. The overall frame with the almost tiles, it looks like a tile arrangement around the outside, adds some structure to that and gives some structure to the overall image. So an academic Photoshop-y exercise that's done extremely well, and I thoroughly enjoyed. Well-deserved honours. Unwavering. A very simple image, beautifully controlled. The rock is punchy, contrasty, and pin sharp, while the soft, smooth water emphasises the contrast in the rock, and the exposure in that fast-moving water is perfectly controlled. There's nothing that's burnt out here, which happens all too often. It's handled really well, technically extremely well done. But from a visual point of view, that contrast and the control of that texture was extremely successful, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Showing legs on show day. This feels like a nod to Elliot Erwitt and his famous image of the little dog. Strong verticals create a successful repeated pattern here. I'm not sure who has the scruffiest legs. Is it the alpaca or the man? Once again, this image made me a smile, and if an image makes me a smile, then I consider it a success. Well done, well-deserved honours. It's a bit tricky when you've seen an image before, and I'm sorry, Ron, but I really tried not to give this best in show. I tried as hard as I could, but I could not give this best in show. Does that make sense? It's wonderful. It had to be the best in show. I thoroughly enjoyed the timing of the moment, that little shaft of light and the vibrant colours, the fact that you've captured that with the flags I'm not sure whether they're as high as they got, but if they flew them higher than that, it'd be amazing. So they're all up there. It's about moment, it's about spectacle, it's about colour. And it reminds us, when we look at it, that we used to be able to, and we're going to be able to soon, to travel to faraway places and see some magnificent scenes. So it was a welcome reminder of that. And that's the last one. Thank you.
You can hear me anyway? Thank you for reading those out in. I'll get in to call out the winners tonight.
Yeah. Castle Hill by Jonathan Brown. There we go, Jonathan. Well done. Marie by Kelvin Aird. Not supposed to shake hands, am I? There we go, Kelvin. Well done. Thank you. Thanks. Kotari by Dawn Kirk. Well done. Autumn Bug by Raywin Wright. New Brighton Sunset by Fritzof Mortensen. Fritzof's not here. The Gamekeeper by John Hunt. Well done. Doing the Mahi by Anne Lamb. Rayograph Interpretation by Thyra Corson. Ben O'Howe Range from Lake Ruritaniwha, Sandra McCoy. Tight Racing by Les Armon. Begonia by Annette Preen. Only Holding On by One Leg, Judy Kirk. Humpridge Summit View by Lan Jiang. Well done, thanks, Lan. The Snake Charmer by Anne Yuan. Well done, Anne. Looking Out, Alistair Phillips. Solo by Peter Curtis. Symmetrical Escalator by Jan Bogue. Well done, Jan.
Thank you.
Magic Stream by Paul Williams. Well done, Paul. Lilac Lass by Alicia Hebden. Wave Action by Catherine Affield. Sing Like No One's Listening, Sue Coombs. Okay. Well, this is High Acceptance for Colour of Gold, Cold by Joe Curtis. Taking Flight, Janine Money. Well done, Janine. Serenity by Anna Stevens. Spoonbill Sunset by Alan Moore. The Von Mistake by Alistair Nichol. Well done, Alistair. And on to the honours. Seat C01 by Carolyn Alcock. Brunner Bridge Twist and Zoom by John Hawkins. Well done. Floral Study by Diane Kelsey. Unwavering for JK. Well done, JK. Showing Legs on Show Day, Newell Greenfield. Did you know whose legs they were? No. And Best in Show, Grosseto Flag Throwing, Ron Willems. Well done, Ron. Sorry for mentioning you.
Thank you.
Before you go, Ron, would you like to tell us about your image?
Most certainly. This was in Grosseto, and we spent the whole afternoon there, and we were in a similar stand on the other side. When this started happening, I got myself into a position. This went on for maybe half an hour, and I just took a few shots and waited for the light, waited for the opportunity, and out of those shots I took, this was by far the best one. It's quite an art to do this flag throwing, and these were the local national championships event. There was a recent program on TV about flag throwing and a boy and a romance and trying to impress his girlfriend by being one of the great flag throwers. Really good story. This was a point of being in the right place at the right time and then working hard to actually get the image that you were looking for.
Thank you, Ron. Have we got the next one back? Yo. Okay.
This is actually the bottom third of the image. It was at the show day some years ago when we still had show day. And what I was looking for was pictures of relationships between different people or people in animals. And this guy came along with his two alpacas. He's holding them up there and looking from one to the other. And that made the picture that I wanted of Bristol.
thank you very much, Ian, for your time and effort, and it's a small gift for your appreciation of your time. Thank you very much.
And thank you, John, for all the organising that went into putting that together. Good luck, everyone who's got their entries in for the landscape competition. And MDC seated. I better go home and sort out that cell phone shot in a minute or two. Thank you all for coming along. Alistair's got all of his prints up. Can I ask you to pop the lights up on the back there? We're coming to an end now, but okay. So if we get bored with those ones, we'll get Alistair to maybe do next week as well. Spend a few minutes, go and have a quick look and chat to Alistair. Have a chat amongst yourselves prior to opening up coffee time, but it's getting close to bailing out time. So thank you to everyone who has helped tonight. Andrew for the live broadcast, which will of course have picked up the fact that my phone rang at the end. I'm really sorry about that, everybody. Wayne for doing the lighting, thank you. Alison and Ian on projection, whoever's been helping on projection, thank you for that. I've got Kelvin down for opening up, but I haven't seen Kelvin this evening. Oh, there you are. Excellent. Jeez. So thank you, Kelvin, for opening and closing, and JK and Alan on meet and greet as well. My name's James. Thank you very much for coming.